What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Going the Distance podcast presented by Immaculate Sports. TikTok, Immac Sports.
Instagram is also Immac Sports.
I just realized I did that backwards. Twitter is at Immac Sports, and so is the YouTube. That's Immaculate Sports. It's a weird day. It's Friday. Maybe that's why we're a little off today. We usually do this every single Tuesday. Today, it didn't work out that way, but now we get to talk about all the trade deadline stuff.
Yeah, it kind of works out better this way for various reasons. Not able to do on Tuesday, not able to do next Tuesday either. So smack dab in the middle with a Friday works here. Obviously, we had the trade deadline yesterday. Ridiculous trade deadline. We're going to grade not every single deal because we don't want to be here until next Tuesday. But we'll do the top, I want to say it ended up being 24 moves from the deadline, or what I felt was the 24 most impactful moves. Obviously, there's going to be some trades on here that aren't talked about that will have October implications. We're going to do a contender tier list as well too, as now the teams are finally in their final states after the trade deadline, and we kind of have everything set in stone now for what rosters might look like. Obviously, barring injury, but yeah, I guess we'll get right into it. I guess I'll just hit off my opener first and just the trade deadline frenzy. It's always fun that last day that we get right before the deadline where all the trades are happening. You don't know if guys are going to be moved or not. There's always those crazy moves, or not always, but sometimes there's those crazy moves like trading your controllable closer for the number 3 prospect in all baseball. We'll get into that one specifically with the A's here in a little bit. And obviously, I think our rants on that might be a bit more spirited than what some of these other trades might be. But yeah, trade deadline's a fun time in the MLB schedule, and it's something I look forward to every year.
For me, it's pretty simple. Nick Kurtz had one of the best games we've seen in a long time. I won't get into the details because we're going to go straight into that right after I'm done here. But Nick Kurtz, thank you for being an A and giving us something to watch. Also, how about Happy Gilmore 2? Pretty good, right? A lot of negative reviews. I was worried. I loved it. Sports-related, kind of sports movie, I guess.
Yeah, I plan on watching that on the plane from one way or another. So I'll probably catch up to you on that once we get in similar spots there. But moving to the player pitcher rookie of the week. You can call it an asterisk on here because it is like a 10-day, 7-day period. We kind of left it flexible to one another on what we wanted to do there. Rookie of the week, though, player of the week. I think we can agree on one name for this guy, though, and that's got to be Mr. Kurtz.
Yeah, so I was looking at stats basically Wednesday to Wednesday when I did this. Either way, it's going to be Nick Kurtz. He had one of the most dominant hitting games of basically our generation. 6 for 6, 4 homers, double off the wall, too. Not to mention his average is back over 300 because he had 12 for 21 stretch and also 7 more extra base hits.
Yeah, just an absolutely ridiculous guy to watch hit a baseball at only 22 years old. What was so cool about that 4-homer game in Houston over the last weekend, I know one of them was against a position player, but just like how he was just flipping balls into the Crawford boxes like it was no problem. It was kind of comedy. Like they kept on testing how far they could go with that. And then his 3rd homer, they okay, let's screw this. He's just been flipping them into the Crawford boxes. Let's throw in 97 up and in. What does he do? He smashes it into the right field second deck. Just a hitter game that we've never really seen before, especially from somebody that young. And it's cool to say that he's on our team and hopefully on our team for a long time. So with pitcher or not pitcher, or player and rookie out of the way, let's get into pitcher of the week now. Skyler, who do you choose here?
I'm going to go with Mr. Reliable Kevin Gausman. He was in Detroit last week. He went 6 innings shutout, only 1 hit, 1 walk, 10 Ks. So, Detroit takes the best record in baseball and then quickly loses it. I mean, things have changed, obviously, since Wednesday. It's very close right now. At least at the time, Kevin Gausman's game was huge for them. Also, shout out Cade Horton, rookie, pitching well for the Cubbies, too.
My pitcher of the week is going to be a bit of a throwback. Yu Darvish had his best outing of the season against the Mets this past week, and I decided to go with him. He goes 7 shuts, 7 Ks, only 2 hits allowed against the Mets lineup that has had some very good moments this year. So how about you, Darvish, showing that he is a viable playoff starter for this Padres team? And as we know, they added some guys around him that we'll get into here in a little bit. But before we get into that, we're going to get into contender tier list. We're doing 5 tiers. I left 7 teams unranked, which are the Braves, the Orioles, the Rockies, the A's, the Pirates, the White Sox, and the Nationals. Maybe you have the Braves in there. Maybe you have the Orioles in there. But those
No.
are my 7 that I left off of it. And I guess we'll get right into that bottom tier, and we'll go from there.
All right. So I don't remember all the teams. I have a little over half. Basically, my very bottom spot, I split here, but I'll just get right into the bottom tier, I guess. These are 5 teams that are technically alive, but I wouldn't put any money on them. That's the Cardinals, the Giants, and Cleveland. I have kind of grouped into one team right now. And then there's Boston and Cincinnati technically do have a chance too. Those teams I probably wouldn't put a lot of stock into, but hey, they're only a couple games out.
Yeah, I have 8 teams that I'll talk about here that could be playoff teams that are definitely long shots, need a lot of things to go right. The first 6 are teams that are definitely, long shots. The Twins, they just gave up everybody. D-backs just gave away a lot of their primary hitters within their lineup. The Giants still have a couple big-time relievers. The Royals still feel like they don't have the firepower for it. The Cardinals just traded their closer and a couple other relievers. Miami Marlins just feel like they're just a little bit too young. And then the 2 teams slightly above them, but in that same tier, I have the Angels. I wish they did a little bit more at the deadline other than add an Oswaldo Peraza. And then the Guardians, who lost their closer to betting allegations, which is a fun one there. Those 2 teams, if I were to bet out of those 8 teams, of which 2 teams could get into the playoffs, I'd say the Guardians and the Angels. But as of right now, I don't like the odds for any of them. As we move into the 4th tier.
All right, my 4th tier is going to be the fun and frisky American League teams. There's only 3 in this group for me. 3 teams I felt like didn't really belong in the top 10. That's going to be the Toronto Blue Jays, on fire. I just don't know how much I trust them yet. Texas Rangers, they did buy a little bit. They got a starting pitcher we'll talk about later. And Seattle, big buyers.
Yeah. My tier here is only 2 teams. It's something feels just a bit off. For one or another reason. First team I'll start with is the Red Sox. They had a pretty quiet deadline adding Dustin May, move that we'll talk about, as well as Steven Matz, a move that we will not get into actually. But they didn't make any big move at the deadline. That kind of soured that for me. And then the Houston Astros, which might be a bit of a shock here because record-wise, I think they're a bit higher than most teams on this list. But I did not like their deadline. I'll talk more about the Correa move in a little bit, but they traded Ryan Gusto, who was a starter for them, and I'm not saying he's going to lock down playoff games for them or anything like that, but they've been struggling to find starts right now, and they just traded a guy who's made 16, 17 starts for them this year. They're relying on guys like Jason Alexander to make starts for them. I know they have a top end of the rotation in Hunter Brown and Framber Valdez that you feel like you could be confident in 1 to 2. But after that, I don't really see a guy that I feel confident taking the ball into Game 3, let alone Game 4 in the series. So the Houston Astros, just something feels a bit off. And maybe they bite me with this. They usually do. But the Astros, I'm a bit down on after this deadline. How about the 3rd tier?
All right. In my tier 3, I have 4 teams in here, and this is basically going to be the classics. These guys are going to be involved no matter what happens to their team this year. That's the Padres, the Yankees, the Astros, and the Brewers. For whatever reason, they're not going to be in the top 2 tiers. Maybe it's injuries like Houston and Milwaukee. Maybe it's just they haven't really proved it yet these past couple months, like San Diego and the Yankees. Either way, these guys I feel like are in their own tier, but we should definitely see them in October.
3 teams for me in this next tier. I call it the sleeper tier. I'll get started with the Rays. I didn't think I'd have them on this list, but after some of the moves they made at the deadline, especially acquiring Griffin Jackson, not really having that, buy and sell mentality that we usually see from them. I know they gave up Caballero, but besides that, They kept Brandon Lau. They kept Yandy Diaz. Like they kept pretty much all their starters except Littell and Bradley. Bradley was in AAA anyways at that point. So I like the additions that they made to their squad. We'll talk about a few of them later on. The Texas Rangers, the lineup's been slow for most parts of the year, but still feels like it can tick up out of nowhere. It's now with DeGrom, Eovaldi, Merrill Kelly, top three in their rotation. I really like the bullpen. They added a couple pieces as well too. Phil Maton and Danny Colomé. Both moves actually I don't think we'll get into in the deals, which just shows you the crazy amount of deals made over the past couple of days here. And then the last team, I have the Cincinnati Reds. The lineup has been a bit all over the place this year, but Matt McLean's starting to tick up. Ellie De La Cruz has been playing good ball over the past couple of months. Austin Hayes has been an impact bat. Pitching staff, Nick Lodolo's been great. Andrew Abbott's been great. And they're probably getting back Hunter Green now soon. And when you look at that rotation in full depth, you have some confidence in it. Maybe the bullpen, not so much, but you just got to get hot for a month for the bullpen. I think that's more reasonable than some of these other teams that don't have a good lineup when the Reds, they do up with solid lineup. Second to last tier here, or second highest tier, I guess you could phrase it in a bit better way that way. Who do you have in this one?
Yeah, tier number 2, I have 4 teams in here as well. These are the World Series hopefuls. They're locked and loaded, ready to go. One goal on their mind right now. That's Philadelphia, the Chicago Cubs, the Mets, and the Tigers. I got no problem with these teams. Maybe some people would group them differently here, but you'll understand once I get to tier 1, right? Maybe in the power rankings, a lot of these teams would be in the top 4. There's just one other tier that's above them. I am excited to see if anyone can trump number 1, though, for sure.
Yeah. The second highest tier is got 8 teams in it for me, and that's usually probably more than I would put here in this spot at this time of the year. But because of no one team really jumping out ahead of others in all of baseball right now, it kind of makes you say, okay, realistically, there probably is 10 teams that could win the World Series right now. And these 8 are just behind the top 2 for me. So start off with the Mariners. They added a couple big bats. The rotation's there. The bullpen's obviously there, so I like them. The Blue Jays have gotten hot. I'm maybe a bit curious about their depth of their lineup sometimes, but outside of that, I like them a lot. The Tigers can be a bit streaky, but when they're going, they're going. We saw it last October. The Brewers, as we know, they don't have a superstar, especially in the lineup sense of it, but their pitching staff is amazing. The Phillies are the Phillies. I don't really think you need to get too deep into them. The Padres added just about everybody that you can think of, and they already had a good roster as well too. So that back end of the bullpen is just something that you don't even want to think about if you're an opposing team. The New York Mets also had a really fun deadline adding pitchers. They also had an impact bat in Cedric Mullins. And then the Chicago Cubs, I like them adding Willie Castro. We'll talk about that moving a little bit. Maybe not as much on the pitching side or lack that big move pitching-wise, but their offense has been so good this year that it kind of makes it work, and they have a background in the bullpen that you can trust as well, too, with guys like Palencia having a big year for them in the back end. Now on to the last and final tier, a.k.a. the top tier, which will presumably be the World Series favorites. Who are the squads you have here?
I got one team left. That's the LA Dodgers. A couple of teams I did leave off. I didn't talk about Tampa Bay. I just figured that worst case scenario for them, even though it's still possible. But yeah, man, something about the Dodgers. It's just a squad that they don't have to make flashy moves. They're already prepared for this season. They're prepared for many seasons in the future. They got some bullpen arms that are going to be really nice, and I don't think I can take them out, man. There's just not a lot of teams that compare. I have no problem with Detroit, but they kind of got embarrassed by Toronto last week. They're going to lose the top spot in a power ranking scenario. Chicago doesn't have a lot of depth, especially with the pitching right now. So I think the Dodgers stand alone.
Yeah. 2 teams in my World Series favorites is the 2 teams that went to the World Series last year, the Yankees and Dodgers. So I guess you could call me boring there as well, too. Yankees, I think, had a great deadline, added a whole bunch of different pieces. Maybe not any one star, but filled in the gaps about as well as you could on a roster. They added a whole bunch of different pitchers. They added a couple different position players as well too. Ryan McMahon, Jose Caballero to help fill in the gaps. Austin Slater, platoon back guys like that weren't going to cost much. And then the Dodgers, people criticize them for having a pretty quiet deadline. I mean, all they got to do is get healthy, and it sounds like that's what's going to happen here soon. They already got Tyler Glasnow back. Blake Snell, I believe, is starting some point this weekend. They got Brock Stewart in the deadline, which I think is big as well too. He's a guy who's, I believe, formerly a Dodger, but definitely has nasty stuff. That we'll actually talk about that move in a little bit. The lineup, maybe Mookie's not having the greatest year, but they still got Shohei, Freddie Freeman, and Will Smith, who's playing like an MVP right now. Andy Pages, Teoscar Hernandez. Like, this team is deep, and it really didn't need much at the deadline, and that's why they didn't do much at the deadline. So I still think it's the Yankees and the Dodgers at the top, and we'll see how that carries out as we get into the beginning of August, starting today. So here we go. Take a drink of water, do what you got to do, because it's time for us to do the trade grades. This usually takes a while. It's the meat and potatoes of the episode. So we'll get started with the first one that we saw, the first big one that we saw. We're going kind of chronological order here. Maybe it gets messy towards the back end of the trades, but the first one was definitely the first one. It's Josh Naylor going to the Seattle Mariners for Brandon Garcia and Ashton Izzy, a couple of pitchers who returned back to the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I'm going to give Seattle an A- for them this one. I think Josh Naylor's a great fit. Seattle clearly needed some MLB-ready power in that lineup. And the only reason it's not an A+ is because Naylor's expiring. But if I'm Seattle, I'm not going to let him walk. I really like this pickup for them. Arizona, I'm going to give them a B. At least they got pitching. They really need that right now, but none of these guys are guarantees. Izzy's having some trouble in Double-A. Garcia's a reliever. I'm going to give them the passing grade, though, because these are our top 20 prospects in the organization now.
Yeah. Josh Naylor, rental, of course. Good bat. Not going to hit a ton of homers for you at this point. But 15 stolen bases is kind of a bit of a surprise. Impact bat from the left side, though, with solid K and walk numbers is the biggest thing with him. I like what Seattle got here. I'd give it an A. As far as the guys that gave up, Brandon Garcia, Ashton Izzy. Garcia is a hard-throwing, low arm slot lefty with a sinker, slider, sweeper. He's not crazy swing and miss, but he has a good ability to keep the ball on the ground. He's definitely a reliever, though. Has even spent time in the big leagues this year. Izzy, he spent all of 25 in high A. He's a righty, solid K and walk numbers, has an xFIP below 4, but it doesn't really surprise me too much there. I'll go B here. Maybe you could have gotten more back for Naylor from some other teams, but I don't think going the safe route and getting a pretty much for sure bullpen arm in Brandon Garcia was a bad way to go.
Yeah.
Next up, Ryan McMahon to the New York Mets for pitchers
Yankees.
Griffin Herring and Josh Rose.
Yeah, I'm going to give the Yankees a B+ for this one. I think the Bronx Bombers bringing in some power and defense to a position of need is pretty big. It's one of the few teams that can actually afford this, and they get to hold on to their top prospects too. That's going to be a theme with the Yankees. We'll get to a little later too. Colorado, I'll give them the slightly worse B-. I like Griffin Herring, big lefty from LSU. He's been killing it in A-ball, but similar to our A salary dumps of the past, how high can you actually grade these guys when they're still pretty far away from the bigs?
Yeah. McMahon, we talked about him in the past. He's a free agent after 27, has some money left on the deal, average hitting third baseman, but plays plus defense. He's posting the career high pull air percent right now at 18.8, and that definitely helps in Yankee Stadium where there is that short porch for lefties. With the money on the deal and some of the other targets that could have been available, I'll add Suarez. I give it a B- for the Yankees. On the other side, Griffin Herring, he's Colorado's number 5 right now. Lefty starter that's spent 25 in high A and low A after being a 6th round pick in 2024. Good K- walk, good FIP, 55 grade slider and 55 grade command according to Fangraphs right now. and I do like him. Groves, on the other hand, spent all of 25 in high A, 9.7 K per nine, 3.38 FIP. Fly ball pitcher going to Colorado. That's all you really need to hear there. I do like Herring, though. I think he becomes a big league starter. But I'll go B here. I don't love it on either side, but I also don't hate it on either side. Next up is Ke'Bryan Hayes going over the Cincinnati Reds. He's already played a couple games there. In exchange for Taylor Rogers, who already got flipped. That move we actually won't talk about. But Sammy Stafora and some cash go to the Pittsburgh Pirates here.
I'm going to give Cincinnati a C. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but I mean, I guess Candelario got released, so you replace him with a guy with a better glove. But now Cincinnati's got a pretty inconsistent bat on the books for a while. 2030, I believe, is his last season there, or his free agency year. Pittsburgh, I'll give them a B, better. Another step backwards for the major league club, but at least Sammy is one of their top 10 prospects now. They escape a pretty bad contract, so good for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'll start off on Cincinnati side. They get Ke'Bryan Hayes, who's got a club option in 2030, so around there, 2030, 2031, whenever he becomes a free agent. Super light hitting third baseman with plus at the hot corner. If he becomes an 85 to 95 WRC plus guy, then he's a get. Like, he's 3-4 WAR. He's pretty much a better Ryan McMahon at that point. And I just don't think the Reds make this trade unless they saw something with Ke'Bryan Hayes that made him seem like a guy that they can mold into something else. If you look at his Savant page, you can see why he's a below average hitter, but it's not like he's terrible all over the board. It's decent exit velocity, hard hit rate, chase, whiff, strikeout rate, stuff like that. I just don't think that they'll be able to do it with him because, I mean, maybe the Pirates just are utterly awful, and that could be 100% possible. But I give it a C for them. On the other side, I mean, also with the contract with him is part of the reason I have the C. The other side, really just great. And Sammy Stafora here, who's Pittsburgh's number 7 now. He's a 23, drafted in 2023, second-round pick out of high school, played all 2025 in low A. Putting up good numbers, 131 WRC plus, 15.7% walk, 28 stolen bases, 44% fly ball rate, but only 4% of his fly balls are homers, which is a pretty low number. Fangraphs believes his strikeout problem will cap him, but I like him, honestly, if he puts on some more muscle. If you hit fly balls, that's half the battle. And once you put on some muscle, which I assume you will do, you'll probably end up being a pretty good player. So I like Stafora. I'll give it an A for the Pirates. I like that they get off this contract of Ke'Bryan Hayes as well too. That's a big one that for a small market team was probably going to be looming for a while if they didn't get him off their books now. Next one that we got is a fun one. Tyler Rogers goes to the New York Mets for Blade Tidwell, one of the weirdest looking dudes in all of the MLB. Drew Gilbert and Jose Butto go back to the Giants.
I'm going to give the Mets a B because what they want to do is beat the Dodgers and the Phillies, and you need more pitching to do that. Rogers has been great. He's been really hard to hit. He's been one of the most consistent relievers since he was called up 6 years ago. But the real reason we're talking about this trade is the return. San Francisco is going to get an A because what a massive haul for a rental reliever. This is one you can't turn down. But there's a reason, too, these guys were available. I don't think this is necessarily the biggest mistake of all of the deadline because Tidwell and Gilbert are already 24. The Mets had no plans to put him in a serious role for at least another year or two. So I don't, like I said, I don't view it as a massive screw up like you may see on Twitter. I just see it as a pretty good haul.
Yeah. Tyler Rogers, definitely rental, like you mentioned. But he has been one of the most consistent relievers in the MLB since 2021. Also not a closer. He's a middle relief guy that's pretty much guaranteed to be his role. But obviously one of the most unique arms that you can add to your bullpen is Tyler Rogers, and that's why he's been so successful while still kind of just doing the exact same stuff for 6 years in a row. On the other side, or I'll give that an A minus for the Mets. But on the other side, Blake Tidwell, I'll start with him. He's number 12 in the Giants prospects right now, 15 MLB innings so far this year. Fastball, sweeper, sinker, slider, changeup, good fastball and a hard slider. Sinker is his highest zone pitch, and his sweeper posts the most whiffs for him. I see him as an end starter or maybe even a multi-inning bullpen guy. Drew Gilbert, he's ranked just below Tidwell, 13th in that Giants system. First round pick in 2022 by the Houston Astros. You might recognize that name because he was traded for Justin Verlander a couple years ago, back when he's a bit higher of a prospect. He's been all of 2025 in AAA. Numbers this year aren't crazy, but he does have a good pull approach. Undersized at 5'9", and curious to see how a 5'9" guy posts power numbers in Oracle Park, because that's never really worked out regardless. But I do think he is a big league outfielder at probably the fourth outfielder type level. Jose Butto, I do like him. He's free agent after 2030. He's 47 big league innings this year, and he's been on the Mets for, I think, 3 or 4 years now at this point. 3.64 ERA, 51.5% ground ball rates. Strikeout walk numbers aren't anything crazy, but the arsenal is kind of fun. He cuts his four-seamer more than most. It's a bullet slider, a downward breaking sweeper, and an interesting changeup that kind of falls pretty unique. Also uses a sinker 19% of the time. I think the most likely outcome for him is that he becomes a full-time one-inning reliever and use his four-seamer, his slider, and his changeup as his trio to get outs that way. So I think those are his 3 best pitches. But I think they got 3 big leaguers here, which is something that you don't often say in terms for a rental reliever on the other side. So I'll give it an A minus for both teams here. Now on to Minnesota and Philadelphia, doing a bit of a blockbuster here. Yohan Duran goes to the Phillies, and a couple top 100 prospects at Edward Tate. I saw that's maybe how you say his last name. I thought it was just Tate. And Mick Abel go back to Minnesota here.
We'll start with the Phillies. I'm going to give them an A+. I wasn't sure how aggressive they were going to be. So, I had them taking Pete Fairbanks last week, if you remember. But this is a much bigger deal with Duran having 3 more years of control, because he's been one of the most dominant closers in the game for a few years now. So I love this for the Phillies. Minnesota, I'm going to give them an A. I had no problem with the return. I have no idea how to say his name. I just assumed Tate, but I guess he is Spanish, so you never know. He's ranked 56th on the pipeline. Mick Abel was the 15th pick in the draft. Considering everybody knew this was a fire sale for Minnesota, they got some pretty nice prospects in return. When it's a reliever like this, sometimes you got to take the deal. They were never getting Andrew Painter. I'm not upset about the return.
Yohan Duran to the Phillies. He's a free agent after 2027, so he's quite controllable there. We know who he is, which is usually a good thing. He's extremely hard thrower with a killer splitter straight out of fucking hell. And he's the closing pitcher that the Phillies have been looking for this entire year. And he's going to be there for a couple more at least after this. And he's still super young, and with the Phillies and how they like keeping their own around, I wouldn't be shocked if he becomes a Philly for the next 10 years at this point. To the other side, I'll call him Tate, whatever. I'll go Tate. Number 4 on Minnesota's prospect list right now, left-handed hitting catcher in high A. He's only 20. He's only 18. The stats can look somewhat underwhelming, but besides Leo to Fries, he's really the only 18-year-old in high A right now. He's got great power and uses it to all fields. Mick Abel, ranked 16th, or not 16th, 6th in Minnesota's prospect board. 25 big league innings so far this year. Fastball is good from a lower slot, harder curve that still has some good downward break, bullet slider, and a solid sinker. Primarily fastball curve versus lefties, and then fastball, slider, sinker versus right-handers. Curve posts really good whiff, but has had some damage off of it. Slider doesn't get a ton of whiff, so to do something with it. I think for him to be a successful 2-3 starter in the big leagues, but the floor for him is like a 4. I think the ceiling is a 2. I like what the Twins got back here. I'll give him an an A minus. I give the Phillies an A. And for first of many high grades, I think, from the Twins and their prospect returns. Now going back to the Mets, get another reliever. It's Ryan Helsley. This time they give up shortstop Jesus Baez, pitcher Nate Dahm, and pitcher Frank Lysalt.
I'm going to give the Mets an A. It's hard to not like a contender strengthening the bullpen like this again, and especially if you have questionable starters like they do. It's a nice way to shorten the game for those guys. So I got no problem with Ryan Helsley here. St. Louis, I'm going to give him a B+. Baez looks like he could swing a pretty powerful bat. There could be a spot open at third for him in the future. And 2 more swings at pitching prospects. So again, it's not bad for a team that's going nowhere to finally start bringing in some younger guys.
Yeah, I'll start off with Helsley. Rental, of course. He's a big-time arm who's slightly having a down year this year. K rate tick lower, walk rate a tick higher, ERA tick higher. However, the stuff is still fun, and him and Rogers are like complete polar opposites. I think I saw something saying that they have like an 123 arm angle degree difference between the two, which doesn't even make sense. And I think it's funny because they gave up 3 prospects in both these deals to the Mets, and the prospects are completely different than what the Giants got. The Giants got all 3 guys that are close to the big leagues. The Cardinals got 3 guys that are nowhere close to the big leagues. Baez ranks number 6 in the Cardinals system. Spent most of the 25 in high A. He's only 20 years old. He's at 10 homers, 119 WRC plus. Fangraphs likes the power, and I think I do too. I think he's by far my favorite prospect in this group of 3 here. Nate Dahm ranks 15th in the Cardinals system, 3rd rounder in 2024, right-hander in high A. Good K- walk, good ERA, 60 grade fastball, 50 grade slider. Starting now, but maybe some reliever risk because fastball and the slider were the only 2 pitchers I saw graded. Elias Salt has spent most of 25 in high A or low A actually. Right-handed pitcher as well too, looks to be a reliever, posts solid K numbers, 60 grade fastball and slider, but 40 grade command. And it's a whole riskier package than what the Giants got, which I think is just a fun thing about baseball, where the Mets traded for a high leverage reliever or 2 high leverage relievers, and they look completely different, throw completely different, and the prospect packages that they gave up are drastically different. However, I do really like Baez's chance to go to the big leagues and perform well there. So I'll give it a B+ for the Cardinals, but an A grade to the Mets here because they produce prospects pretty fucking well. 3-team deal here. This one maybe doesn't have a ton of like impact all around, but it was the only 3-team deal we had, so I felt like it was kind of obligated for us to do it. The Reds get pitcher Zach Littell. The Rays get Hunter Fiducia and Brian Van Bell. And then the Dodgers get Adam Serwinowski, Paul Gervais, and Ben Rortvedt.
Yeah, we'll start off with Cincinnati here. I'll give them a B because they got the biggest name in the trade here, and they're just outside the wild card with an actual chance. I like going after Littell. He's been great in Tampa Bay, relatively cheap. Of course, we know what the cost is now. I'll go to Tampa Bay next. I'll give them a C. Just a salary dump as they flip the pitchers they got for a backup catcher immediately. So they, I guess, appear to still be in the hunt in their minds. We'll get into that at the end here. And then the Dodgers, I'm going to give them the win here, B+. Of course, they jump in here at the last second. They get the most interesting player of the entire trade here, Serwinowski, hard-throwing lefty in high A, a lot of room to grow, and I'm sure you got the measurables and everything on him. If you haven't been able to tell yet, if it's a single A pitcher, I will give you the reins for that.
Yeah, it is still like extremely tough to find a ton of stuff on them because they just don't have a lot of public information for those guys. But I'll start off with the Reds and Zach Littell. He's a rental. I think he's heavily outperformed his expected stats this season. His only real good numbers are extremely low walk rate and a decent chase rate, which I think was probably the reason why the Rays are willing to move him. He locates his stuff well, but I doubt he's a 3.5 ERA guy for the Reds the rest of the season, especially in that ballpark. I expect mid-4s, maybe in close to 5. So I give it a C-. I don't really love it for them, especially because they were the team that gave up Sirwanowski. The Rays, Hunter Fiducia is just backup catcher. We'll move on from that. Brian Van Bell, AAA pitcher that spent most of the season in the rotation. Fastball, sinker, slider, curveball, changeup. Doesn't throw hard, but excels at throwing strikes and creates some whiff. He's only got a 4% walk rate, so I think that's pretty important there for a guy that maybe can, be a 6 starter. Just throw him in one day for the Rays. The Dodgers, or I give that a C for the Rays. It's neither good nor bad. Sirwanowski for the Dodgers, number 14 in the Dodgers system, 21-year-old lefty, 6'5", and he's in high A, high strikeout guy, high walk rate guy. Seems like a guy the Dodgers can mold. From what I've seen, like super big stuff, fun delivery. Reminds me of Zach Root as well too. Kind of sent stuff to you about that. Paul Gervais is fun as well too. He has 6 innings in the big leagues this year, and he's 6'10". Big time extension, 7.5 feet, getting down the hill there. So that just means he's releasing the ball 7.5 feet away from the rubber, closer to home, makes your fastball look faster. He's a fastball, slider, cutter, or curveball guy. Slider looks like the best pitch. Maybe a fun project for the Dodgers as well too. And then Wart Vet is just the typical extra catcher. Sirwanowski is the win here for the Dodgers. I give him an A for that. But for the other 2 teams, I don't really think it's that great. Big trade. Perhaps our biggest position player won here. It's Eugenio Suarez going to Seattle for the second time in his career for Tyler Locklear, Juan Burgos, and Hunter Cranton. Burgos and Cranton are both pitchers. Locklear, first baseman.
I originally had a B+ only for Seattle, but just after hearing you say the return again, I'm going to give him an A, because this, again, was probably the best fit for Suarez. I just kind of thought there'd be a bigger bidding war for him, I guess, so that's why I didn't think Seattle would get him. But yeah, that's a lot of power for a team that needs it, for sure. I'm going to give him an A. Arizona, same as the last trade we gave him. I'm going to give him a B. And this is the rare package where all these guys will be up in the bigs within a year, if not today, like Locklear. And despite being a hot commodity, I'm okay with this return too. It's a rental. He's not coming back. He's 34 years old. So this is definitely not a loss, even though they get the lower grade here.
Yeah. Start with Suarez. Rental, of course. Big time pop. But also get him out of swing and miss. That's typical power hitter. It was expected to be the most expensive rental bat on the deadline. And he didn't go for that much. So I give the Mariners an A here, even if he does just go back to being Seattle Geno Suarez. Locklear, number 6 in Arizona system, 24-year-old now on the MLB side. Big time pop. He has 19 homers in 2025. But my problem with him is that he hits too many ground balls. In AAA, 24.4% of his fly balls were homers. And I do not see that rate staying. We know AAA Pacific Coast League is or not Pacific Coast League. That's a single A one. But whatever the AAA West Coast League is, it produces a lot of offense. And you could tell, you hit the ball in the air, it's gone. He hits the ball on the ground way too much. He has the exit velos and stuff like that, but I just don't think, if you're hitting ground balls, it's not going to work for you regardless. So Locklear, I don't love. Burgos, 25th in Arizona's system. He's a right-handed reliever. He's got an interesting arsenal. 34% cutter, 33% sweeper, and 21% sinker in his MLB outings. Doesn't throw a four-seamer. Cutter has some weird downward break to it as well, too. Has a chance to be successful at the MLB level, but I think it's as a reliever, of course. Cranton, 23rd in that Arizona system. 3rd-round pick in 2024. He's a reliever, so again, likely a guy that you'll see at the big league at some point. Not a ton of minor league innings, but does have a 65 grade fastball according to Fangraphs. I don't like this return. I don't like Locklear as the top guy. He's been in the big leagues before, hasn't really seen a ton of success in his limited time. And I think they could have gotten more probably from some other teams. So I give it a D plus for the Diamondbacks. Now on to a fun pitcher swap here. It's Shane Bieber going to the Toronto Blue Jays for pitcher Cal Steffen.
Yeah, I'm going to give Toronto a B plus. Why not? Everybody likes Shane Bieber when he's healthy. They could use another starter. You would imagine multiple years if they're able to extend him here too. They got a lot of older guys in the rotation right now. Cleveland, not too far off. Another B return for me. The Guardians are going to have to rebuild that pitching staff, man. And similar to the Suarez trade, they weren't going to bring him back at all. So anything extra is a W here. And I think the return has a slightly worse grade because there's no guarantees with the young pitching grade or young pitching prospects, excuse me. But this guy Steffen did dominate A ball. So we'll take another look at this in a year, and maybe we will know the winner.
Yeah. Start off with Bieber. He's rental with the 2026 player option for about $13 million. Hasn't pitched this year, but he should be back soon. When he's right, he's right. Obviously, won a Cy Young back in 2020 in that small season. I don't necessarily love it because you feel like Shane Bieber's a certain thing, but he really isn't right now. He's coming back from injury. And Cal Steffen is a guy that I've heard was not a good thing for the Blue Jays to give up. So I'll give it a C plus for Toronto here. Cal Steffen, he's number 7 in that Cleveland prospect list right now. Second round pick in 2024, right-handed starter in Double-A, and he's had an amazing year. His low walk rate has led him to have a 22.8% K-minus walk right now. Lots of weak fly balls. It's a 49.1% fly ball rate, and 4.4% of all of his fly balls are homers. So that's a lot of weak fly balls. He's got a decent mix and good command, which should let him to be a starter in the MLB. I saw some people saying he's a 3-4 starter, and if you use that for, half a year of Shane Bieber, I think the Guardians take that. So I'll give Cleveland an A here. Toronto gets a C plus, and I think Steffen has a good chance to be a big league reliever or a big league starter here in a couple of years. Now to the big one. Get ready for our rants on this one. This is the one I put the most notes into because I wanted to learn more about the guys as well too. Mason Miller and JP Sears go to the San Diego Padres for shortstop Leo DeVries and 3 pitchers, Braden Nett, Henry Baez, and Eduardo Nunez.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one because we haven't actually talked about this yet with each other. So there are so many different angles to look at this, specifically with the A's too. But I'll start with San Diego. I'm going to give them an A because overall I think San Diego is one of the few places I would trust to maximize my pitching, whether it's in the rotation or the bullpen. Mason Miller and JP Sears have been really consistent with the A's, the only consistent pitchers on the squad. And San Diego's going all in right now. They have a lot of control with these guys. Let me go to the A's. I kind of unorganized notes here because I was kind of rambling in my head with the A's return here, but I'm going to give them an A minus. I get it. You have to do it. It's the number 3 prospect on pipeline in baseball. This isn't available every day, but I can't help but be a little worried and have some skepticism here because this is confirming it right here. They're going to get rid of everybody who isn't coming to Vegas. That means that, maybe the lineup we thought was confirmed is not right now. Not everybody there outside of Rooker and Lawrence Butler could be available. And, I am excited for the pitchers coming in because this isn't Hoglund. This isn't JT Ginn. These guys are going to be competing for the rotation next year. I like that. Of course, we need to talk about Leo DeVries. This is going to be a really exciting guy to watch grow in the minors. But we also have seen this before. Addison Russell didn't even play in the bigs with the A's. There's no guarantee this guy's going to stay on the squad. And even though I don't want to talk about this, it's the A's. We have to. This guy's going to need a lot of time in the minors to grow. And I'm always going to lean towards the proven talent rather than the prospects. Even though It's an A minus. I still think this is a very promising group here. I'm excited. Nunez is a guy who could be in our bullpen next week, right? Of course, I'm sure
She's in our
you're going to
bullpen
be ready
today.
for that. Really? Shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's what I got for now. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah. I'll start off saying before I get into grades and stuff like that, because obviously we're fans here first. This is a day that we'll look back in 5 years, and it will be a day that probably has a lot of weight on that 5 years from now team with the A's. It could either be the day that we gave up the future reliever of the year, World Series champ, perennial all-star Mason Miller. Maybe he turns into a starter again. Maybe JP Sears with the Cy Young. Who knows? But it could also be the day that we got a future superstar. And we got the guy that was the loud and fun, switch hitting, power hitting shortstop that changes your franchise and makes you be able to win a World Series in 5 years from now. I mean, both those things could be true theoretically. Or Mason Miller could get Tommy John. Leo DeVries can not hit for 3 months. And both teams suck out of it. The world of possibilities with Leo DeVries is so wide open that it makes it tough for you to nail down a grade for it right now because you obviously don't know. But I mean that still you don't know with any of these players that we've talked about. So that's an interesting part of it, of course. The fan in me originally hated it. It's like, oh fuck, as an A's fan, you see all these guys get traded. You don't want it to happen again. It's going to happen again. But this is really the start of that potentially being a thing again with this team and trading away our core again. However, the GM in me, if I was a GM and AJ Preller said, hey, we're going to give you Leo DeVries, one, I'd be pinching myself because I wouldn't think it's true. Two, I'd be curious if he's trying to just fuck with me. And then three, I would immediately accept the trade offer. You don't see guys like Leo get traded ever. That doesn't happen. I saw last time top 5 prospect was traded at the deadline was 2017 or something like that with Eloy Jimenez. Yeah. But still, it's a opportunity to get rid of a closer when a closer is also the easiest position to kind of just make again. You can't just make a shortstop out of nowhere. You can't just really make a frontline starter out of nowhere. But a closer, you can kind of conceive one out of thin air in a year or two and make a guy with nasty stuff. Elvis Alvarado, Jack Perkins, even Eduardo that I'll talk about here in a second is possible. So with that all being said, let me get into the grades. Miller and Sears to the Padres, I'll start with first. They get an A. It's 2 controllable pitchers. Miller could be the best closer in the league for the next 4.5 years. He also has the starter possibility, some of the best stuff in the league. Sears is about as consistent as a 4 or 5 starter you can find. He's also controllable for a while. And I am intrigued to see what changes the Padres think with his stuff to make him a pitcher that doesn't throw the sweeper to offhanded hitters. Because I know a lot of people don't like that, but I think it's an A for the Padres there. Other side, starting with Leo DeVries, of course, number 1 with the A's, prospect, 18-year-old in high A. He's the only 18-year-old with at least 100 plate appearances in high A or higher this year. The power is fun from both sides. He's got 19 doubles, three triples, and 8 homers in 2025. He's a switch hitting bat with maturity beyond his years. 13.9% walk rate, 19.8% K rate. It's stuff you don't see from 18-year-olds that haven't had a ton of game experience in comparison to the guys that they're playing. Pretty sure the average age in high A is 22. So he's playing against guys that are at least 2 to 3 years older than him on the minimum side. The defense looks good, and I think he's got a strong arm. And I think there's a real chance that he becomes a superstar, and that's why the A's accepted the steal. Braden Net, number 5 pitcher in the A system, right-handed starter in Double-A. He's posted some good K numbers, but worries come with the walks and command. 26.3% K rates, but also 10.4% of walk rates. I've seen some concerns about him being able to become a 4 or 5 star or be able to become a top half starter, but seems to be a guy that can fit into a, 4 or 5 starter role. Baez is number 9 in the A system now, right-handed starter in Double-A as well too. He's way different than Net. He's more command than stuff. 23.4% K rate and 8.1% walk. Tons of lead contact. 53.6% ground ball rate. Only 3.1% of the fly balls he's allowed to have turned into homers this year. Give him a couple years, and I think there's another guy that could be a 4 or 5 starter as well too. I don't see either of those guys, becoming an ace or an all-star or anything like that. Eduardo Nunez, 17th ranked prospect in the A system, now right-handed reliever with a bit of MLB time. He's a super fun arm with some big time stuff. Super hard fastball and a nasty hard slider, but he can't throw either pitch for a strike. It is ridiculously. It's almost scary, how much or how little command this guy has of his pitches. And that's what's caused him to not be in the big leagues for, most of his career. He's 26 years old, even with that stuff, because he can't generate whiffs on it because hitters, once they know one is coming, they are okay. And usually he maybe has one pitch. However, the A's have proclaimed some other guys that are similar to this. And I think he'd be a fun project for the A's. And if, he sucks in this 2-month period and we can't find him, I don't think you have any sleep loss with just cutting him after the season. So obviously Leo's the get. Leo has a real chance to be a franchise changer. So I'll give the A's an A+ here, as I've seen a lot of people do. I don't think that's just me being a homer.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's risks that he becomes nothing, but so does every other 18-year-old. Playing baseball, he seems to be the guy that I'm most sure about. So A+ for the A's and an A for the Padres.
I have a
Now
feeling
we get into the.
My bad.
Go ahead.
I got a feeling this is one we're going to be debating for the next 5 years because Leo does carry himself like he is a superstar. But I don't know if he will get up as quick as Lechurio did. We'll see. We got to wait.
I saw my prediction for him would be that he spends the rest of this year at low A or high A in Lansing. Next year goes to Double-A, see how that goes. If he goes well, then you give him a bump up to Triple-A in September or something like that. And then 2027, you put him in Triple-A. And if he performs there, then you give him a call around the trade deadline. And maybe he forces your hand before that. Maybe he doesn't. But that would mean he's in the big leagues in 2 years from now, maybe a bit later. And that would be a late 20-year-old, which
is young.
Even if it takes till 21 or 22, I'm okay. He's Rule 5 at the end of 28, I want to say. So it's just got to be up by then. And I'm not too worried about that. Now into the one that we're all curious to hear about, Harrison Bader going to the Phillies for outfielders Henry Mendez and then a pitcher, Jeremy Valoria.
Yeah, I'm going to give the Phillies a B+ for this one. It's not Louis Bob, but it's a way more consistent right-handed hitting outfielder than they already have there. It's another squad trying to make that World Series push, so I understand it. I figured they'd go after some sort of right-handed bat. But I'm going to give Minnesota a better grade, A-. Again, I think they're doing really well here at this deadline. Mendez killing the ball in Double-A, so I'm okay taking that in a fire sale situation. Philly obviously doesn't care about that. They got to keep Justin Crawford and much others, so win-win.
I'll start off with Bader going to Philly. He's rental with a mutual option for 26. He's actually having a pretty good year. Decent power speed combo, which leads to an above average bat while also being able to play a good center field. I'll give it a B. for them. It's not a superstar, but I think it's better than Austin Hayes, which they got last year. On the other side, Henry Mendez ranks 20 in Minnesota's prospects right now, according to Pipeline. 6'3", left-handed bat in Double-A. Great hit tool, 11.5 walk percent, 12.5 K rate, which is super low for that Double-A league. I think the bat will be good enough to play at the MLB level when it's time, but I guess the defense is fucking awful with him. I saw it's a 30 grade field.
Oh my God.
So maybe he's a DH or something, or maybe he just doesn't know how to throw a baseball. But I like the bat to be MLB impact. Valoria, he's 16 years old. He's played a little bit in the DSL. He's not even rated a top 30 prospect right now, and I don't want to grade him off of 5 games in the DSL. So I do think Minnesota did well here as well too. I've said that a couple times. We'll see if I say it again for the next trade. A- for them, but a B for Philadelphia. 1-for-1 is our next one with the Dodgers and the Twins. Brock Stewart goes back to the Dodgers, and Josh Outman goes to the Angels. Or not the Angels, maybe the Angels eventually, but he goes to the Twins here.
Seems like a good spot for him in the future. We'll see how Mickey Moniak is doing. Actually, he's gone too. Never mind.
Yeah.
Anyways, the Dodgers are going to get an A for Brock Stewart. He returns to LA, very cheap. They needed one more lefty. I'm all on board. No complaints here, even if he, has had some injury troubles. This is a 1-year type of situation, I'm pretty sure. Minnesota, I'm going to give it a D+. This is the one I didn't really like. I guess you got to get one guy who can actually play in the major leagues after trading away the entire team, but I'm not so sure that Outman has a lot more room to grow here if the Dodgers are giving up on him. So this was the one that I trashed. I tried not to trash any prospects. He's not, so I'm going to trash him.
Yeah, I really like Brock Stewart. He's a free agent after 27. He's a stuff monster with the chance to be the sneakiest armada at the deadline, in my opinion. He's got high K rate and good walk stuff. I think he's a leverage arm for the Dodgers. They've done stuff with guys with similar stuff like Evan Phillips in the past, and I think they can really maximize off of him. So I give the Dodgers an A+ here. It's one of my favorite moves for a smaller move. Josh Outman, though, 28-year-old outfielder who struggled in the MLB over the past 2 years. Don't really think there's much for him anymore. So I'll do it. Minnesota gets an F for this deal. This is the one deal so far with them that I'm like, what the fuck did they do here? Because Brock Stewart, I thought, has a chance to be a guy that actually gets something back.
Glad we're on the same page. I was like, what the hell, man?
Yeah, it did not make sense. Baltimore and the Mets link up for this next one. Cedric Mullins goes to the Mets for pitcher Raymond Gomez, pitcher Chandler Marsh, and pitcher Anthony Nunez, who I'll get into Nunez if you're a bit curious about him because he's got a weird story in his lore.
Okay, good, because I don't know much about any of those guys. Okay. So we'll start with the Mets. I'm going to give them a solid B. I don't think Cedric Mullins is the type of guy that's going to play here for a long time, so I'm going to grade it as a rental. It's an everyday player. He needs a change of scenery. He should be much better than Jeff McNeil out there in the outfield, so I'm okay with this. Baltimore, I gave him a C because I didn't really know much, like I said, about these guys. I figured they would trade Mullins. I don't think any of these guys are in the top 30, so I'm playing this one cautious. Baltimore gets a C for the cap dump.
Yeah, I'll start off with the Mets. They get Cedric Mullins. He's a rental. He is kind of exactly a left-handed Harrison Bader, is what I came up with. Good defense, solid speed, some power. I think there's a pretty decent comparison there. I give it a B. I don't think there's too much. Very interesting prospect package going back to Baltimore. Gomez is 23 years old, right-handed reliever on high A. 80 grade fastball with 20 grade command.
Whoa.
So, yeah, watch the fuck out. 30% K rate, but also a 16% walk rate, which is both really high. Um, so maybe, Baltimore says, hey, we want to try something with you. And if it does work, cool. Maybe he becomes a big league reliever. If it doesn't work, then he is, I don't know, flipping burgers or something. Chandler Marsh, 22-year-old right-handed reliever in high A as well, too. I saw no grades available on Fangraphs, which is rare. 2.57 ERA across high A and low A in 2025. His walk rate has jumped up since he went to high A, but still posting good results. And then Anthony Nunez is actually 24th in the Mets system, or in the Baltimore system now. He's 24 years old, a right-handed reliever in Double A. He's got a crazy story. He was drafted as a 17-year-old in 2019. He played 2 seasons with the Padres system as an infielder, and then got released because he was a 19th round draft pick as a 17-year-old. He cited an eligibility rule which allowed him to return to college as long as it wasn't to a D1 or a junior college. So he ended up going to UTampa, which won the national championship in 2024.
Okay.
He goes undrafted. The Mets signed him in 2024 as a pitcher, and he's had good results. This season with 60 Ks and 40 innings, solid secondaries as well too. It just seems kind of still new to the pitching side. I don't know if he was pitching at Tampa or hitting or whatever is going on there, but he's pitching now for, I guess, the Orioles. Maybe there is something there. He's already 24 years old. All these prospect gets from the Orioles, though, do feel like a shot in the dark, and just kind of closing their eyes and pointing to a random prospect on the board. I'll give it a C+. Maybe one of these guys turns into a leverage reliever or something like that, but probably not. So Mets B, Orioles C+. Next up, another big reliever traded, which seems to be the theme of this deadline. David Bednar goes to the Yankees for catchers Rafael Flores and Edgelin Perez, weird first name, and outfielder Brian Sanchez.
I'm going to give the Yankees an A because I think Bednar is going to be a really great fit for them. They probably wanted Mason Miller, but the Yankees are another team that, they need to help that struggling rotation. And if you can't go deep into games, this is one of the best ways to do it. They're going to have a fantastic back end, and they picked up multiple guys at this deadline too. So it's not just that 7, 8, 9. They're going to fully rebuild that. Pittsburgh, C-. I found it interesting that Flores and Perez both had catching experience. They bring them in the same trade here. We'll see if any of them actually stick there at catcher, but it kind of seems like they got fleeced here. You get what you get when you don't trade him at his top value. I've said it before. I think Bednar should have been traded 2 years ago. These guys are kind of outperforming in the minors, so that's why I gave him a C-.
I'll start with the Yankees and Bednar. Free agent after 2026, so you get him for a year and a half at least. He's having a really good bounce back year after a rough 2024. This is exactly what the Yankees like. He's good fastball with a killer splitter. He should be able to close games for them if need be. So I give it an A. They also didn't give up any of their top 100 prospects in a seller's market, I guess you could call it, at this deadline. Start off with Flores on the Pittsburgh side, 11th in their system. 24-year-old right-handed bat in AAA. He's mashed this season mostly in AA. 16 homers, 141 weighted runs created plus. Good power comes with the good old swing and miss as well too. He's got okay defense. Maybe like a hit first backup catcher. Perez, 15th in the Pittsburgh system. He's a 19-year-old right-handed bat in low A. He's posted good contact numbers, good walk, and solid K. But he's got like 0 pop. He's got 0 homers this year in 83 games. I don't see him hitting the ball that hard. Sanchez, 21-year-old left-handed bat outfielder in low A as well too. He's got good size at 6'3", seems to have some good patience and a decent hit tool, but only 4 homers this year in low A. I don't love the package back for Bednar, so I'll give it a C. but the Yankees do get an A here, getting David Bednar to potentially close games for them. Next up, call it a blockbuster, call it what you want. Carlos Correa going back to Houston for Matt Mikulski and some cash.
Yeah, this is interesting. I'm going to give Houston a B plus, and I think any other team might have gotten an F for this one. But I imagine that Carlos Correa is going to be a team player for Houston again because that's where he started. That's the team who gave him a shot. I always figured he'd end up at third base. I didn't know how, but they got Jeremy Pena, so he's not playing there when he comes back. And they didn't pay Tucker, obviously, so they have money. However, I don't think they won this trade. I think Minnesota gets an A for getting rid of the contract. I'm sure you got the numbers for that one because they're kind of hitting the reset button here in Minnesota. I don't think they should have signed him in the first place. Now it's kind of a get out of jail free card.
Carlos Correa to Houston. I'll start there. Minnesota's paying $33 million, I believe, of the 100 plus left on his contract through 2028. He's had a rough offensive year. I was watching MLB Network when this trade went down, and I think it was Tom Kirchin just like, man, they're getting Carlos Correa. This is the biggest deal that we've seen in a long time. And it's just like, dude, he's been shit this year. Like, he's got the lowest walk rate, lowest homer, lowest slug, lowest barrel. The defense hasn't been good. Maybe the defense is better at third, but like he's been a pretty shit hitter this year. And if you take the emotional aspect out of it, it feels really fucking stupid to pay a guy this much money when you have, I mean, I know Isaac Brady's out for the year, but like, is this really worth it to do it? You know, maybe he goes back to Houston, feels love in the air, and hits, 320 homers and, becomes Carlos Correa again. But I just don't see that happen. There's a reason why teams were the Yankees, the Mets, the Giants were not signing this dude when it came to his physical because of the possible injury. And we've seen that in previous years where he hasn't been able to play the whole year. I think we're seeing it kind of dip into his production now. That's the big thing for it. I give it a D for Houston. Mikulski, the other side, I saw it's funny. The 26-year-old left-handed reliever in high A. I saw something saying, I don't know if it was on Twitter or TikTok, is imagine you're Matt Mikulski and you're seriously considering, like, you're 26 years old. You're like, maybe it's time I just hang up the cleats. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, 1-for-1 traded for Carlos Correa. Like, talk about like pressure on your back from the casual fans and whatnot. He's got crazy stuff though, is what I found, but he literally cannot throw his strikes. Like, the walk rate nearly matches his K rate, and that's not good. At all. I doubt he ever becomes an MLB arm. Would be a cool story, but yeah, Mikulski, maybe he's just moving to Minnesota here. That's all it really is.
Throw me in there.
Yeah, but regardless, I give him an A- on the deal because good for them getting off the cash. And I don't know what like normal grades are on this deal. I know what Tom Kirchin thinks, but like, it was Verducci. That's who it was, not Kirchin. Kirchin's ESPN. Tom Verducci is MLB Network. That's what it was. So sorry, Tom Kirchin. Maybe you actually know ball, but I don't like this one for the Astros. Next up, Miami and Houston linked up for one. It's Jesus Sanchez going to the Astros for Ryan Gusto, Chase Jaworski, and outfielder Esmil Valencia.
Houston is going to get another B plus for me here because they had to do something. Their entire team is hurt, specifically the outfield. So Jesus Sanchez is definitely got more pop than your average league average corner outfielder. So I'm okay with this. He's not a free agent for a couple of years. It looks like they're going to make another run or two here with this same group. So maybe that's why they wanted Correa and and they're doing this now. Miami had a weird return. I'm going to give it a C plus. Gusto should be pitching right away for these guys, but he hasn't been very consistent. Jaworski's a long ways away. I'm going to give the Astros the upper hand here, even though this could not really matter either way.
I'll start off with Houston. Jesus Sanchez, free agent after 2027. League average left-handed bat that could have some untapped pop, especially in that stadium. I give them a C plus here. I don't love that they got rid of Gusto either, considering their current starting rotation. Jason Alexander being a starter. No. Gusto also, I think he's a legit big league 4 or 5 starter. He has posted some solid K- walk numbers. He's a fly ball pitcher in a good ballpark now for that. Average stuff, and he's a big time strike thrower, which is good. Jaworski, number 15 Miami prospect, left-handed middle infielder in high A, 21 years old. Field and speed over bat, I would say pretty ground ball heavy, batted ball profile, but does post some solid contact. Valencia, 19-year-old right-handed bat in low A. Fangraphs likes the bat, 45 grade speed, but 50 stolen bases in A this year, so maybe there's something that doesn't track there. Low walk, average K, which is a high swing attack approach. He's a bit undersized, but I do think either Jaworski or Valencia becomes a big leaguer, and Gusto, I think, is probably there to stay as a 4 or 5 starter in the Miami rotation. So I give it a B plus for them and a C plus for Houston, which takes me to the longest trade we got. Ryan O'Hearn and Laureano to the Padres for 6 fucking prospects with probably the most ridiculous names that you can find. Boston Bateman, Cobb Hightower, Victor Vicaroa, Tyson Neighbors, Brandon Butterworth, and Tanner Smith. Yes, those are all real names. They're not backyard baseball players.
I'll start off with San Diego. I'm going to give them a B plus for bringing in Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano. A lot of issues with that lineup this season, and San Diego's clearly all in. They made that big trade with the A's. They did what they had to do. I'm going to give them a positive grade. Baltimore, I'm going to give an A, though. You know, I'm not sure how much, like, just a guy like Boston Bateman actually moves the needle for Baltimore here. But they combine the two guys. They get 6 young players here from an organization like San Diego, who has such a great group of scouts, and that many guys for a couple of rentals. That's okay with me. I won't get into all the names. The only guy I actually had heard of was Boston Bateman. About, oh man, don't trade for Boston Bateman. But then they get 5 more guys, so works out.
Yeah. I'll start off with San Diego as well. O'Hearn's a rental. Ramon has an option for 2026. O'Hearn's a true platoon, but mashes righties. Ramon has some solid splits for both sides and should play everyday left field with Tatis in right and Merrill in center. I give it an A. I think it's good here. They don't give up any super high prospects, mainly because they don't have any left. But I think they did well there. Baltimore, I got something on all 6 of them, so get ready here.
All right.
Bateman, number 6 in Baltimore system, 6'8", 19-year-old left-handed starter in A-ball, second-round pick in 2024, solid K and walk numbers, has only given up 1 homer in like 68 innings this year, I think. Good ground ball rate, decent mix with a 60-grade slider. Definitely the best prospect out of the bunch. Cobb Hightower, 21st in Baltimore's system. He's a 20-year-old right-handed bat in low A. He's got good speed, solid K and walks, solid contact numbers as well too. Figueroa, 21-year-old left-hander or left-handed bat in A as well too, posting pretty great numbers in A, 7 homers, 14.5% walk, 20% K. He's got a fly ball approach, but 40.8% of his batted balls are oppo, which I don't love, but shows he has the power to hit the ball to all fields. Tyson Neighbors is 22, right-handed reliever in Double A, in High A and Double A in 2025 after being drafted in 2024. Really high K rate, high walk rate that comes with it as well too. And Fangraph says he has a 70 grade curve, so maybe a decent offering there. Brandon Butterworth, he's a 22-year-old in high A, right-handed bats. Solid power speed numbers in high A this year, an aggressive approach with lots of fly balls. I actually think he's probably my favorite outside of Bateman in this bunch. And then Smith, 22-year-old right-handed reliever in low A, 6'6", 245. So reminds me someone I know here. Went to Harvard before being taken in 15th round of 2024. So also reminds me of this guy here. Big K and walk guy who excels at keeping ball on the ground. So he's practically used, guys. He's 6'6", went to Harvard.
Yeah, definitely got into Harvard.
Yeah. But B plus on the comeback, couple of rentals, I guess, and you get probably one or two guys that are going to make the big leagues. That's usually a good deal as a whole, and I think I trust San Diego to make decent picks the year before, and that's where most of these guys came from.
They do it every year.
Yeah, they'll do it again next year too. Arizona, Texas linked up for this one, 2023 World Series. Merrill Kelly goes to Texas for pitchers Cole Drake, David Hageman, and Mitch Bratt.
Yeah, I'm going to give Texas an A- for this one because Texas is still alive as they pick up another pretty good rental starter here. Their rotation has to get deeper here. If they want to compete with Houston and Seattle's pitching staffs, they had to get a little better. And, I think there is a shot in the dark chance at the division. That's why I mentioned them during our contender list earlier today. So you got to do something at the deadline. And this, I think, is acceptable. Arizona's going to get another B. That's been all their returns for me. Merrill Kelly wasn't coming back, so at least Cole Drake is pretty highly rated prospect for his age. I would imagine he comes up in September, if not today, for the Snakes.
Yeah. Merrill Kelly to Texas, I give it an A. He's rental arm, but he's been underrated and very consistent for a long time. He's going to be a guy that gives you 6+ each time you get Hill out and can be a playoff number 3, which I think is exactly what they were looking for. Other side, Cole Drake. He's number 7 in Arizona system, 25-year-old left-handed starter at AAA, 60-grade fastball, which is actually a sinker that he throws 40% of the time. Also throws a slider, curve, and changeup with 60-grade command. All secondaries in the low 8s. Good K, good walk. Has done a good job of getting ground balls in AAA. Tracks to be a lower-end starter, which I like for them there. Hageman, 14th ranked in Arizona system, 22-year-old right-handed starter in A-ball. Good size and has had a great year in A-ball and complex league, despite only it being 22 1/3 innings pitched. In that time, good K and walk, but I assume that there's probably some injury history there with him being so young. I believe he's only like 18, 19 years old, and 22 innings this year probably means that he got hurt or has been hurt in the past. Mitch Bratt, number 10 on the Arizona system, 21-year-old left-handed starter in AA. He's had a great year, 4.3 walk with a 28.5% K, 3.18 ERA, pretty even ground ball, fly ball splits. Not the greatest stuff according to Fangraphs, but he has 70 grade command. I like his chances to be a 4 or 5 starter as well too. And I think if you look at Drake and Bratt and they both become back-end starters for a starter that's a rental, you did pretty damn well. So I give them an A on this deal. I give Texas Rangers an A as well too. Good deal on both sides. Willie Castro goes to the Chicago Cubs here for pitcher Ryan Gallagher and pitcher Sam Armstrong.
Yeah, we'll start with Chicago. I'm going to give him a B+ because I feel like the worst case scenario with Willie Castro is he's just not quite as good as Zobrist was. And we all know that pitching staff is the real problem here. But if you're serious about a World Series run, Willie Castro is the other kind of guy that you really need on the team to make that push. It's just the kind of guy that can extend the middle of that lineup even further than it has been. So I'm okay with this. Minnesota, I'll give him a B for Ryan Gallagher, the guy I know here. Maybe Chicago knows something we don't, and that's why they let him go. But I feel like he really killed it in high A, and he just earned that double A promotion. You know they're built different in the West Coast Conference, Kyle.
Mhm. Yeah, I'll start off with Chicago here. Willie Castro's a rental, super versatile. He's played second, left, right, third, short, center this year in 25 alone. Just above league average bat that also provides a good speed. World Series type utility player is what I circle here. Castro. I give it a B plus. Probably less because of him and more because that's really the only position player that they added, or only, probably the biggest player that they added at the deadline in general. On the other side, Ryan Gallagher, 16th ranked Minnesota prospect, 22-year-old right-handed starter in Double A, 2024 sixth-round pick out of the University of California in Santa Barbara, which of course I like. Leads with his secondaries and has a great feel for them. Has posted great K and walk numbers in his first full season of Pro Bowl. Forces a lot of swings and misses. Curious if fastball is good enough for him to have legit success at the MLB level. But I do see him as a 4 or 5 starter. Armstrong, he's 24 years old, right-handed starter in Double A. Pretty meh results in Double A, and really couldn't find any grades on him. Regardless, I think both sides get a B plus here. Next up, a kind of fun one. The Dodgers trade Dustin May to the Red Sox for James Tibbs. Ding, ding, ding. You've heard that name before. He got traded for Rafael Devers earlier this year. And another outfielder, Zach Earhart.
We'll start off with Boston. I'm going to give him a C plus. And, I really like watching Dustin May pitch. But if this was my team, I'm not putting him in my rotation. I'm sorry. That's a pretty high price for a guy with a lot of health issues. So I don't like this being the primary pitcher that they got. I know they got Steven Matz too, but he's not starting. This isn't 2015. So the Dodgers, I'm going to give them an A. I usually avoid finding all-star caliber comps for prospects because so much can go wrong when you're down there in the minors. But I really believe that this guy's going to be a lot better than James Outman. And that's who they just got rid of. So this is perfect timing for the Dodgers. Earnhardt is another outfield prospect that in case it doesn't work out with Tibbs for whatever reason, this guy should be a major league player. I like it.
Yeah. I'll start off with Boston. Dustin May's a rental. He's thrown the most innings he's had in his entire career. The results aren't terrible and the stuff is fun, but the logic really isn't there for me to give up Tibbs and Earhart for this. And I think Dustin May, as much as I don't want it to happen, at this point, he's an injury waiting to happen with the highest workload of his career. So I give it an F. The other side, James Tibbs, number 7 ranked Dodgers prospect, 22-year-old left-handed hitting outfielder. He struggled in his short stint with Boston, but he had a good year in the Giants high A. He was the 13th overall pick in last year's draft, and Boston gave up on him incredibly quickly. And I think the Dodgers were like, okay, say less, Craig Breslow. You just gave us, a guy that was a high first-round pick just a year ago. Earhart, 25th ranked in the Dodger system, so not as high. 22-year-old right-handed outfielder in Double A. High A and Double A this year for him so far. Okay contact numbers, and the power is there. 8 homers in Double A, 48% fly ball, which I like, and 46% pull rate as well, which I like as well too. Pull and fly balls is your key to hitting homers, and Earhart has the ability to do that. So I give the Dodgers an A plus here, and the Red Sox an F, which is the second swing that I have of that. And somehow the Dodgers are the team that got the A plus in both those deals, and the teams that they dealt with were teams that got the F. Inter division here, 4 trades to go. We're nearly to the end. All of them actually include the Rays or the Yankees. But this one is a Rays or Yankee trade. Jose Caballero goes to the Yankees for former top prospect Everson Pereira and a good old PTBNL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to give the Yankees a B plus. Speed and defense really aren't the positions of strength for the Yankees, so it makes sense here. And also, I waited kind of till the end to mention this too, but the Yankees go in a completely different strategy here with their prospects. I think maybe they realized they might actually need some of those guys next year if Stanton and Volpe and Dominguez and Goldschmidt, maybe they play a little money ball because obviously the Phillies and the Padres and the Mets traded some big names. Tampa Bay, slightly worse B. I was listening to some guys from Baseball America talk about this trade, and to them it sounded like the roster spot was more important than Pereira for Tampa, which makes sense because they cooked up some pretty crazy stuff after that. So I'm going to give Tampa Bay the benefit of the doubt. Pretty even trade here.
Yeah. I'll start with Caballero in the Yankees. He's a free agent after 29, so pretty controllable. Great speed, of course, and a versatile defender. You're not paying for the bat, of course, but a big time utility. Although the bat isn't like god awful, like it's below league average, of course, but it's not the end of the world. And I think his versatility and speed obviously outweighs that, and can be a guy that you just pitch run in October and be okay with. So I give the Yankees a B plus here. Everson Pereira was also a guy that they're kind of felt like they were done with at this point. For Pereira, though, he ranks 17th in Tampa Bay system, 24-year-old right-handed hitting bat in AAA, cup of coffee in the MLB in 2023. He's had a solid year in AAA in 2025, 127 WRC plus, 19 homers, 12.5 walk, but a 28.7% K rate when you've been in AAA for 3 years does scare me. The guy that I would comp him to right now is actually on the Tampa Bay Rays big league roster. That's Christopher Morel. A lot of swing and miss, but some good pop from a guy that isn't like huge as well too. You know, this is a guy that's 6'1", 6'2". And I think Pereira's about that as well too. Player to be named later, you can kind of book at that guy to be an all-star for the Rays. That's kind of how these things work. But I give it a B for the Rays. I think Pereira's kind of had his better days, and I think Caballero is a player that should have some impact for a while. So B plus for the Yankees there. Next up, starter trade. Adrian Hauser had a great year this year. Goes to the Tampa Bay Rays for former top prospect Curtis Mead and a couple pitchers in Ben Peoples and Duncan David or David.
I'm giving Tampa Bay a C minus. I'm not surprised. I just don't know how much they actually really need Adrian Hauser. It's funny that they're going to do the entire opposite strategy here as the A's by bringing in MLB level pitching right now. Maybe they do think that there's something bigger going on here with Tampa. I don't know. I don't see it yet. Chicago, B minus. Good for them, man. I'm not the biggest Curtis Mead guy, but they took a shot in the dark on Adrian Hauser, and he had something left in the tank, and they got a guy who used to be at least a highly regarded prospect.
Yeah, I'll start off with Hauser and the Rays. He's rental, of course, 2.1 ERA in 68 innings. Pitched this year. Stuff isn't crazy, and he won't strike out a ton of people, but has excelled at keeping hitters off the barrel and getting ground balls this year, which is usually a good trait for a starter. I give it a B for Tampa Bay. I don't think he's going to be a 2.1 ERA guy for the rest of the year, that's for sure. On Chicago's side, I'll start with Mead. 24 now. He's a former top prospect that hasn't found consistent success at the big league level. Kind of reminds me of when they traded for Miguel Vargas last year, whatever year that was. Guy that was top prospect, kind of battled injuries, battled not finding playing time, now gets probably a chance to play every day for the rest of the year. 132 plate appearances in 2025, 87 WRC plus, 3 homers, decent walk, good chase and whiff rate despite being below average K, solid bat speed. Ben Peoples is a right-handed reliever in AAA, has navigated a high walk rate this year because he stays away from the barrel. Fastball, slider, changeup is his arsenal. Will probably pitch for the White Sox in the near future. And DeVitt, AAA starter with good size, really low walk rate, solid K, 20% K minus walk rate, low 90s fastball with a curve, changeup, cutter, slider, kind of just throws the kitchen sink at you. He's a fringe spot start guy, I would say. But I think three guys that maybe have some big league impact for a guy that you just signed in the middle of May. So good job from the White Sox. They get an A minus from me here. Next up, big reliever trade. We got Camilo Doval going to the Yankees for catcher Jesus Rodriguez, third base Parks Harbor, pitcher Tristan Beer Riling, and pitcher Carlos De La Rosa.
Yeah, I'm giving the Yankees an A here. No Leiter Jr. and Fernando Cruz for a little bit of time. So the Yankees grab Bednar and now Doval, who's only a year removed from just straight up dominance. The Yankees hold on to their most important prospects, like we've mentioned. So I love it. I love it. That should be a pretty good scene for him. You know, I wasn't really sure where Doval was going to go, but that seems like a pretty good spot. San Francisco, I gave him a C plus. And I didn't give them a fail because I think they'll take any kind of pitching help at this point. But I think this is another team that got gypped by the Yankees this trade deadline. I'm not trying to be a hater. These guys could turn into something, but I like to see a little more than like a good month in single A before betting on them. And then, of course, De La Rosa was just in the Dominican Summer League, so I got no clue.
Yeah. Doval to the Yankees, they'll start there. Free agent after 2027. It's kind of a contrast to many of the arms the Yankees like to acquire, primarily a cutter slider guy instead of their usual like four seam splitter combo. Stuff is nasty, and I have no doubt the Yankees will get the most out of him. So they get a B plus there. Other side, I'll start off with Jesus Rodriguez, 16th ranked Giants prospect, 23-year-old right-handed bat in AAA, hit over fielding catcher. Good walk with pretty low K, 5 homers and 17 stolen bases this year. And he hits all fields. Parks Harbor, 23-year-old right-handed bat in high A, good size, 161 WRC plus across low A and high A this year, which is pretty damn good. 6 homers and solid walk rate with the reasonable K rates. Another guy that hits all fields. Riling, 24-year-old right-handed starter at Double A. Pretty run-of-the-mill numbers, more of a fly ball pitcher, but not crazy swing and miss stuff either. Don't think he's a big league starter at all. De La Rosa, 24th ranked in the Giant system, 17-year-old left-handed pitcher, and that's right, the Dominican Summer League. He's posted some crazy K stuff early with good zone rates. But it's also way early to tell because it's 22 innings in the Dominican Summer League for a 17-year-old. And I believe he's not that big either. So, I don't know. B plus for the Giants and a B plus for the Yankees here as we get to our last trade. Finally, it feels like we've been going for hours. Simple. Griffin Jacks for Taj Bradley. What do you think?
Yeah, kind of a weird one. We'll start off with Tampa. I'm going to give them a B because they've done this before, and I don't think they're trapping themselves either with this pick. Like I thought maybe they would if they traded Bradley straight up, like they did for Nelson Cruz a couple years ago, maybe. Because I could see them going all in next year or even flipping Griffin Jacks for more than this next year in Rays fashion. So I'm okay with this. However, I'm going to give Minnesota the better grade, B plus. Hey, man, AAA stats don't matter, but this guy just got demoted, and instead of shutting down, getting upset, going on Twitter, he goes out and throws 7 no-hit innings. So I think this is as good as it's going to get if you trade with Tampa Bay. This guy will play in the big leagues.
Yeah. I'll start off with Griffin Jackson, Tampa Bay here. He's a free agent after 2027. I think he's the best non-Mason Miller reliever traded this offseason, or not offseason, deadline. Probably, maybe this offseason as well, too, with how Tampa Bay does their stuff. The stuff is out of this world good. ERA is at 4.5, but the FIP is like a shade over 2. So that 4.5 ERA is not sticking. Strikes everybody out, and he also doesn't have the walk problem that most relievers do. I think he's a top 5 reliever in the MLB, probably, definitely top 10. So I give it an A here. On the other side, Taj Bradley goes to Minnesota. He's free agent after 2029. 2025 has been a bit of a step back for him. Lower K, higher walk, less chase, more contact. But I don't think he's a lost cause at all. Like you said, I think he's a good get for them. Controllable starter who has had some big league success. I think he's a fun project So a weird little cut there. But as we move on, there's a whole bunch of other trades that we didn't get to talk about. So now we're actually going to grade the other 30 deals that happened. But was there any trade that, maybe we didn't talk about that you perhaps just wanted to like briefly talk about or shed some light on as something that you see impactful as we get into October, or maybe even past that?
Yeah, you know us. I mean, we could sit here for another 2 hours and go through everything because we're addicted to this. But there are four guys I had in mind that I would keep a close eye on because you just know they're going to get put in a tough situation in a very important spot. That's Jake Bird to the Yankees, like him from Colorado. Maybe help some of those starters out. Mike Soroka to the Cubs. That's basically the only starter they got for that rotation. So, I mean, he's going to be out there, man, whether he's good or not. Kyle Finnegan to Detroit, model of consistency for a setup guy, even closed this year for Washington. And Freddie Fermin to San Diego. Another squad, they're obviously going all in. If you want to beat the Dodgers and other teams like that in the NL, you got to have a lot of depth, specifically catcher, too. That's an important position. And I like Freddie Fermin.
Yeah, a lot of the relievers. Sir Anthony Dominguez, Caleb Ferguson, Steven Matz now at this point for Blaze Jordan and then string one. Kit Ridge to the Cubs. Seawald, who's been hurt all year, goes to the Tigers. Finnegan to the Tigers as well, too, like you mentioned. Jake Bird's a big one as well, too. I like Ramon Urias to the Astros. I thought that was the favorite move that I saw from them. I think he's hit well over the past couple of weeks, and maybe he could be used pretty well in that Astros lineup as just utility guy to play infield, outfield, and serve some valuable at bats for them. Bailey Falter to the Royals as well too, kind of an impact starter who doesn't have crazy stuff and has been under the radar for a couple of years now. Obviously, shout out to Miguel Andujar going to the Reds. Nasty Nestor, the molester, goes to the the Padres for Brandon Lockridge, who actually led off today for the Brewers. And then Taylor Rogers, who went to the Pirates in one of the deals, goes to the Cubs for Ivan Brethauer, who got drafted by UCSB last year. So the Cubs drafted two UCSB guys last year, got rid of both of them at this deadline.
Sorry, bud.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, I mean, that's the gist of them. We talked about it pretty much as exhaustion for these other things. Looks like you have some training camp updates and maybe a couple of big-time trades that we saw, or requests of trades that we saw.
Yeah, we don't need to get too in depth here. We'll do that after we see some preseason next week. But there were a couple things that have happened in that 10-day span that we kind of have to talk about, at least for a second here, because two superstars requested a trade right after each other. We'll start off with Micah Parsons in Dallas. Sounds like he had some sort of argument with the Jones family. He ended up tweeting this big note today about how he, thanks guys, but I'm never playing for you again. I kind of have a feeling that they're not going to trade him, and maybe that's a guy who just sits for a year. We'll see. Maybe they will actually get a deal done, but I don't know. It's pretty dramatic for a guy I think they can figure it out with. Terry McLaurin, on the other hand, I'm not so confident because this has been an ongoing thing, maybe 3 years now of him trying to get paid. It just hasn't happened yet. The Jets were a potential spot before they gave a bag to Garrett Wilson, of course, so I don't think so much anymore. But definitely a hot receiver name on the market right now.
Yeah. Kind of the same thing. McLaurin, maybe paying him $30 million, what he wants is rough. Maybe that holds up a trade. But Parsons, if the Cowboys want to do it, there's definitely going to be suitors for him. He's one of a kind. Still super young. And, I mean, he would take a couple first probably. But, yeah.
Yeah, weird. The next thing in the NFL is a more positive thing for everybody. All those holdouts with the draft picks have ended. Also, Mr. Hendrickson from Cincinnati. I know that was a potential spot for your Raiders, so sorry about that again. But hey, man, the rest of the league moves on now. Every single draft pick other than Quinshaw Judkins is signed. That's off the field issue, so that has nothing to do with the holdout. It was, damn, who was Cincinnati's first round pick? Why am I blanking on
Shamar
it?
Stewart.
Thank you. Shamar Stewart, Texas A&M. He was the last one. He got it done. Longest the first rounders held out. Kind of crazy, but it's over. And then, of course, the Hall of Fame game was last night. I was working, unfortunately, caught some highlights. Trey Lance keeping the NFL dreams alive.
That's practically a CFL game. That's what the Hall of Fame game is.
Yeah, that's all I got, man. I just wanted to touch on a few things, and we'll get back to it before the season starts for sure. This was just a long-ass trade deadline episode, so let's keep it moving.
Awesome. Layups bowl predictions last week went well. We went 4 for 4. So that's your Wendy's sponsor here. Go get your free 4 for 4 for us going 4 for 4 or something. I'm just kidding. No Wendy's sponsor yet. Last week, though, we had Milwaukee over Seattle on Wednesday. That did happen. Skyler had Baltimore over Colorado on Friday, aka Saturday.
That was my pitching matchup. That's why I write them down.
That did happen. Yeah, there we go.
Sometimes.
This week, I decided not to choose anything with this week and a half stretch that we are going through. We're not doing an episode. Just feel like it's a good refresher to not always gamble.
Of course. And that's a very good point. I won't be putting my own money. I just wanted to mention 2 games that I'll be watching on Sunday. Start off with Milwaukee. I got him beating the Nationals on Sunday. That's Mizorowski. He's facing Brad Lord. I had to double check that name a couple times. It's his real name. He started a couple times as an opener. He actually went 5+ last week, so maybe he'll be a starter. Don't care. I got the Miz.
Yeah, Miz Lord. Miz versus Lord. That's a fun one. Last week, bowl predictions. We went 2 for 2. I had Toronto over the Yankees on Wednesday. It did happen. Skyler had the White Sox over the Chi Sox. Not the Chi Sox, the Cubbies on Friday. That did happen, of course, as well, too. This week, again, I didn't choose anything, but I like your pick here.
Yeah. Thank you, Adrian Hauser, for my bold prediction last week. This week, I'm going to have the Marlins playing a little spoiler on Luis Eel's debut this season. I'm going to beat the Yankees on Sunday. That's Edward Cabrera against Eel, of course. I just don't see the Yankees letting him go that long, and that could disrupt the whole flow of the game if the bullpen's in early, even though they do got some new guys. Miami's played in those games before. They should beat him in that case if he's not pitching well. So there we go.
That's going to do it, though, for episode 255. Weird one here. Next week or next episode, 256. I don't know. We'll figure it out then because we got some time until then. But anything you got or?
Yeah, I believe – I think it was about 12 hours ago, but someone said it was like 530 hours to week 0. So I'll take that. I'm excited. A couple weeks away. Yeah.
Let's go, dude. We will see you in a week and a half.
Let's go.